Ladies and gentlemen, when something happens at the edge of the universe or at the edge of the known galaxy, okay, at the far reaches of the galaxy, you know what I'm trying to say. And Democrats can find some way to link it to President Trump, they'll do so. Oh, well, Trump knew. He knew. He withheld military assistance. It wasn't a coincidence. He was going after Biden. If Biden were the nominee, because he's not going to end up being the nominee. This is the most hilarious, pathetic divide and conquer strategy by Madam Secretary. Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee. She's never stated she wasn't going to run eventually. She never stated that. Go look at what she's actually stated. It's always, well, I'll support the best Democrat who has the best chance to win. So it's always that kind of deposition type of statement. Well, I'll always support the Democrat who could win. She ain't, even if she were to endorse Biden, it would be, oh, coach, my ACL. Who do we have? Rodham. Bring Rodham up. 17 errors, batting .250. Why not? Oh, great stats. Madam Secretary runs the show. Always ran the show. So she'll be a nominee, but in large part, it's a machine. It's a Democratic machine that eventually President Obama will control. Right now, it's still Bill and Hillary. They knew. They all knew. They all knew. That's why you have here, SarahCarter.com, declassified Horowitz footnotes show President Obama's officials knew Steele dossier was Russian disinformation designed to target President Trump. So you have to ask yourself, did President Obama know of Clinton's servers? Of course he did. He lied about it. Of course he did. He emailed he emailed his Secretary of State Clinton, over 20 times using a pseudonym. Okay, Cheryl Mills. I wrote about this in the Daily Caller. Cheryl Mills in the campaign email states, the president knows that Madam Secretary doesn't have a state.gov. We have to fix this. Okay? There's already evidence that President Obama knew of Clinton's unauthorized servers with top secret intelligence on them. President Obama, of course, knew. Okay? One thing you can say about President Obama, not very good to the people of Libya, failed NATO intervention, but he's a brilliant man. He's a brilliant man. Not a good president, I don't think. In aggregate, no. Overall, from a bird's eye view, especially the failed NATO intervention and drinking Flint water and standing silent when Standing Rock took place. You look at, we can go on forever. Increasing our involvement in even more countries. Continuing Bush's failed doctrine of never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. Not a good president. But one thing you could say about him is that he's a brilliant individual. He is a brilliant individual. As a human being, he is extremely, extremely intelligent. And he knows what's going on. He's not duped and deceived. And he's not completely hands-off. He has loyalists, like every politician. You don't become a two-term president if you don't have loyalists. If you don't have people who are loyal to you. If you don't have people who uphold your political machine. Okay? Case in point, David Plouffe. David Plouffe, The Guardian quoted David Plouffe, his campaign manager, as stating, when Clinton spread a photo of President Obama in African attire, it was the most shameful and offensive fear-mongering of either side in the election. This was before the euphemisms on the left on nationalism and supremacy and all that. Clinton spread and fomented the birther myth. And that was Clinton. The Guardian has the article. Now, it was I opposed it when President Trump did it. That was wrong. But it was initially, it was David Plouffe's quote, initially started by Clinton. Go look at the Guardian article, the most shameful, offensive fear-mongering in the election. They're the ones who spread a photo of President Obama in African attire. They're the ones who painted President Obama as breaking into a home during the 3 a.m. ad. And they're the ones who have the audacity to talk about how President Trump is a bigot. They're the ones who did this to President Obama, and President Obama then in turn, as a Democratic president, two-term president, said, I endorse Hillary Clinton. And now he's saying, I endorse President Trump, Biden, very likely because President Trump stated that he knows a secret, which is that Clinton's going to be nominee. Hillary Clinton, Clinton stated, go on YouTube, she's the one who called black youth super predators who must be brought to heel and who lack empathy. And then she's the one supported by celebrities and intelligence community officials and wonderful liberals everywhere, because they're not the racist ones. They're the good ones. They're the good people. They're wonderful. But the whole point is President Obama knew that his intelligence officials went after President Trump. So 6 minutes in, President Obama knew that his intelligence officials went after President Trump. Almost certainly, President Obama was a part of setting up and framing President Trump. We've always had a peaceful transition of power. We always had a peaceful transition of power from George Washington to President Obama. That was the hallmark of our democracy, of our republic, a peaceful transition of power. We don't have that anymore. We had an FBI and Brennan's organization and an intelligence apparatus that actually went after an incoming president, a president-elect, a candidate, under the absurd notion that he worked with Russia. But now, let's just go ahead, and if you look at sarahcarter.com, the whole point is it's a political machine. That's why I spent 6 minutes to talk about this. They engage in racism. They engage in bigotry. They engage in xenophobia, blaming Russia for their faults, for their corruption, the fact that we know. They engage in all of these things. But what's more important than people's health in a pandemic? Voting. The Democratic Party. What's more important than believing people who accuse Biden? Well, the Democratic Party. You believe when it's a Republican. You don't believe when it's a Democrat. What's more important than the lives of people in Libya? The Democratic Party. It was a NATO intervention. It wasn't just us. They're very sly and conniving. But at the end of the day, they know, look, you would have to be completely oblivious in your administration if you don't know what your own FBI chief is doing. Of course, President Obama knew. He was a part of everything. But here, newly classified footnotes from Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz's December FBI reveals that senior officials in President Obama's administration, including members of the FBI Crossfire Hurricane team, knew the dossier compiled by a former British spy during 2016 election was a Russian disinformation campaign to target incoming candidate Donald Trump. Okay. They knew. We know this from the newly classified information. 8 minutes in. They knew. Okay. Well, how do you reconcile the fact that they knew this? Well, for the same reason they endorse people who engage in overtly racist tactics, like Clinton. All is forgiven when they engage in bigotry, which is, by the way, far more egregious than anything that they accuse President Trump of doing. President Trump signed prison reform legislation. They engaged in mass incarceration. President Trump was the first president to step foot in North Korea, begin détente between North and South Korea, to the point where President Moon Jae-in of South Korea states, hey, we can envision a joint Olympic team between North Korean athletes and South Korean athletes. When was that ever possible? And you compare that to a failed NATO intervention that obliterated Libya. They get away with everything. The Democrats get away with everything because media has a memory span of about half a day. And everything is so manipulated. They think that Trump is like, the four horsemen of the apocalypse all in one orange package. They are so convinced he'll lead to the end of the world, even though he's withdrawing Americans, signed a peace deal to end America's longest-running military conflict. But the issue is not so much, it's not only, well, wait a second, how is it possible that President Obama knew, or how is it possible that nobody is really talking about President Obama knowing? Because it's a political machine. Do you honestly think President Obama didn't know of Clinton's servers? Do you honestly think President Obama didn't know his own administration is going after Trump? Do you honestly think that President Obama thinks Biden is capable of even, keeping a $5 bill safe? If you give Biden a $5 bill, are you confident that he would keep it in his pocket? Or, are you confident that he knows how to get out of a room? Or I think it's a shtick. I think that a part of this is just, Biden at his best is, but he's not really one fry short of a Happy Meal. He's all there pretty much. When he's bragging to the Council on Foreign Relations, was it the Council on Foreign Relations? Oh yeah, I forced this prosecutor to get fired. You're not gonna get the billion in loan guarantees. I'm out of here. Oops, spilled the beans on that one, didn't you? Okay, he's lucid there when he's talking about potential criminal acts. Which, by the way, the rebuttal is the worst rebuttal of all. Well, the prosecutor wasn't engaged. It wasn't looking at corruption. It's not the vice president's job to fire another country's official. Tell me, where is the job description? Where in Biden's job description does it say you can fire another prosecutor in another country? When your son is on Burisma getting $3.4 million. But anyway, further, the partially classified footnotes reveal that those senior intelligence officials were aware of the disinformation when they included the dossier in the Obama administration's intelligence community assessment. They were aware of the disinformation. President Obama knew. His officials knew. They also knew that they were being duped, and they didn't care. I explained this in a segment prior to this one. These people will eventually be indicted. It'll take time. President Trump's going to win again. I give him an 80% chance of winning. The prediction is that Clinton is going to be nominee. That is the biggest political prediction of all time. Absolutely nobody has ever said that Clinton will be nominee. I've been saying this since I wrote in the Huffington Post in 2017. Clinton 2020 is a reality. Get ready for 8 years of Trump. And she's going to be nominee in large part because this entire charade was 3 years of just paving the way, making everything morally relative, making Clinton, who actually committed actual crimes, just as palatable. And, to liberals today, Clinton is pure as the driven snow compared to Trump. Yet they impeached Trump. There was no legal statute. You could find they impeached Bill Clinton on legal statutes, lying under oath and obstruction of justice. And you could find legal statutes that Clinton broke. Numerous ones, U.S. Code 793F. Then you have the bribery and racketeering statutes that Rudy Giuliani was talking about. And he wasn't just saying this as like a campaign ploy. He was listing the actual statutes. Money doesn't flow into a Clinton Foundation and then Uranium One doesn't just simply, miraculously, not get vetoed by President Obama. Maybe there's something there. Maybe that FBI informant William D. Campbell didn't have to utilize a dossier. The whole thing is a gigantic charade. And if you don't want unelected, very corrupt intelligence officials, then vote for President Trump. If you want peace between North and South Korea, then vote for President Trump. If you want an end to never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts, then vote for President Trump. If you wanted an end to NAFTA, vote for President Trump. If you wanted an end to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, vote for President Trump. If you don't like mean tweets, then I guess you have a problem. You can't vote for Trump. By the way, don't ever speak to anyone ever again about... don't ever speak to anyone with derangement issues pertaining to Trump. Don't ever speak to them about politics again. Ever, 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 ever. Don't do it. Don't engage in it. Don't even think about it. It's a waste. It's not only a waste of time, it will ruin relationships forever because they just can't stand. They cannot stand the reality that President Trump is not the caricature or the mythological creature that they've created. Trump is a very good president. When you look at what he's been able to accomplish, he's accomplished more than President Obama in 8 years. Tell me a lasting foreign policy accomplishment aside from absolutely obliterating a country in Libya. that President Obama accomplished? Tell me a lasting foreign policy accomplishment. I want to know. Getting us into more countries? Expanding Bush's foreign policy that was predicated upon intelligence failures? I want to know what the lasting foreign policy is. If President Trump goes, God forbid, just one term, his lasting foreign policy will be détente between North and South Korea and bringing an end to America's longest-running military conflict in Afghanistan. Two major accomplishments. I want to name anything that comes close in President Obama's administration. It even comes close, not just in terms of foreign policy, as those grandiose achievements of President Trump. I want to know. So, the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is the following. You're looking at a situation. You're looking at a situation where it's very difficult to believe that a sitting president wouldn't know what his administration was doing pertaining to the investigation of an incoming president, a president-elect, when that president-elect was being investigated based on a dossier that was already riddled with disinformation and misinformation and factually inaccurate statements. Or they call it raw intelligence. It was raw refuse. And you ask yourself, well, how is he able to get away with this? Or how are the Democrats able to get away with this? The same way they just sweep everything under the rug. Media is not wearing this shirt. Okay? I'm wearing this because I support President Trump. Any negative, horrific, horrible, absurd allegation or this fantasy that Trump is this monster Russian operative bigot, that's not true. You don't sign prison reform legislation and start the beginning of peace, but the beginning of a roadmap towards peace between North and South Korea and end America's longest-running military conflict. That's the opposite of what an authoritarian does. These imbeciles on the left are like, he's a despot. What? Anything that, if they don't have complete and utter control of the narrative, then the person's a despot. No, an authoritarian, you historically illiterate fools. An authoritarian does not end America's longest-running military conflict, or sign prison reform legislation, or help begin peace, a roadmap towards peace between North and South Korea. That's not what a despot does. Or give people checks. You know, when there's a, well, maybe, but no. You know what I'm trying to say. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. If you see anyone on Twitter trying to impersonate me, notify Twitter support. I do not have, or on Facebook, notify Facebook support. I do not have a Twitter or Facebook account. So notify Twitter support of anyone who is trying to impersonate me because they're breaking the law. Give me your thoughts. If you want to support my voice long term, my Patreon is below. Thank you so very, very much.